Well, hi, this is Ken, and you're watching Mastering UX, where we provide a solid education for UX designers, UX researchers, and UX strategists. In this episode, we'll be covering a term that many UX designers often hear, but may still have questions about it, and that is cognitive load. While cognitive load may sound like a term straight out of a psychology book, its implications for UX design is actually quite profound. Today, I really hope that we can demystify the concept of cognitive load and explain the importance in UX design. And I'd really like to cover some actionable insights that can really help you be more conscious about your design practice. So, as UX designers, it's easy to assume that if users appear to understand what we've created, then we succeeded. However, we need to remember that cognitive load still applies even when comprehension seems high. Users may indicate that they grasp the workflow, they may have succeeded in completing a task, but still they may be experiencing significant cognitive burden. The strain may not always be manifest in obvious errors. According to cognitive load theory, their mental resources are still taxed in inefficient ways that deplete attention and engagement. The design choices we view as straightforward could be imposing this unseen load that's gradually fatiguing your user. This speaks to the importance of measuring cognitive load directly through techniques like think aloud protocols, rather than just relying on feedback. So we should validate that our designs optimize total mental effort and not just the apparent understanding. By digging deeper into cognitive responses, we can create experiences that truly minimize every form of load. So what is cognitive load? Well, cognitive load refers to the mental effort that's required to process information, complete tasks, and it originates from educational psychology, and the term was popularized by John Sweller in the 1980s. He had a cognitive load theory that points out that working memory has a limited capacity, and when information intake exceeds this capacity, cognitive load often occurs, and it leads to errors of abandonment of the task that you're working on. So if we take an everyday example, let's just say that you're trying to cook something and you all of a sudden receive a phone call and your kids begin to tell you that they need help with your homework, you might be experiencing cognitive overload. This is an experience that leads to mistakes, frustrations, and stress. So why does cognitive load matter in the world of user experience? Well, understanding cognitive load for UX designers is really important for several reasons. The first one is user retention. There was a study that was done by Nielsen Norman Group that users are 38% more likely to abandon a site if they find it difficult to navigate or understand, which is really directly related to cognitive load. Also, for efficiency, reducing cognitive load can make users more efficient. A study published in the International Journal of Human-Computer Interaction found that interfaces designed with lower cognitive load led to faster task completion rates. On accessibility, high cognitive load can make a product less accessible, and this is particularly important for users with cognitive impairments. So there's also user satisfaction. A user interface that minimizes cognitive load is often perceived as more intuitive, and it leads to higher user satisfaction rates. So how do we design for cognitive load? Well, I just really want to point you to Steve Krug's influential book, Don't Make Me Think. I can come up with a lot more factors, but I really do think the book itself is really designed to minimize mental effort and avoid confusion. This book ties to minimizing extraneous cognitive load. Krug stresses the importance of website navigation that users can follow intuitively to not have to expend a lot of energy. And all this relates to reducing the load through clear information architecture. So load is influenced by almost every design choice that we make. It's in the content, the navigation, the workflows. So optimize it requires holistic design, and there are always opportunities to reduce cognitive load. So you can say that lower load benefits all users, regardless of age, ability, familiarity, and it's really this universally valuable attribute that we should aspire for. And you could really say that it's kind of this evergreen goal. So how do we test for it? Well, cognitive load is not usually something that we test for separately, but it's something that we should be mindful of when we're doing our already planned user testing. So, for example, if we're doing some user testing, we may decide to do a usability test. We may observe users thinking out loud. And as they complete the task, we should listen for signs of confusion or frustration. We can do follow-up surveys and make sure that their rate of sort of perceived difficulty and mental effort required is captured. And we can do this by having this kind of rating scale of ease of use. We can do eye tracking. Sometimes a lot of attention in a certain area is a good thing, and that's where we want them to focus. But it also may be an indication that they don't understand the label that we've used. A/B testing, you can try various design elements or button placements to compare the load. And then there's user feedback. We can ask open-ended questions about the ease of use and the understandability, maybe at the very end of the question or after finishing sort of a section of part of the usability test. So we also need to pay attention to facial expressions. And there are some facial expressions that can kind of give away that there's a lot of cognitive load that's being spent, kind of furrowed eyebrows where somebody looks like they're in confusion or concentration, squinting. It kind of suggests that they're processing information. Lips that are pursed, it could mean that they're thinking hard or they're frustrated. Strained eyes, this could show that they're exhausted mentally. Hesitation, these kind of long pauses before taking action, could show that there's some kind of uncertainty. And then if they're backtracing, they're kind of going back and maybe reading a label repetitively. This kind of shows that there's this difficulty in mapping the flow. If you hear audible sighs, that could be expressing some kind of exhaustion or frustration with their mental demand. And then there's also visible frustration, agitated body language, shaking their head. They might look a little bit exasperated. And if they're asking clarifying questions, what does this mean? It often signals confusion. So in conclusion, in the realm of UX design, cognitive load is not just a buzzword, it's a critical factor that can make or break the user experience. From John Sweller's research in the 1980s to modern day studies on website usability, the evidence is very clear. Minimizing cognitive load is essential for creating efficient, accessible, and satisfying digital experience. It's easy to overlook subtle factors like load times or text complexity, and these elements can sort of cumulatively contribute to mentally taxing experiences that do lead to user drop-off. So at a very minimum, we should perform this cognitive walkthroughs and have this kind of step through of asking, will the user understand this? So I hope this gives you something to be mindful of when you're both designing and testing. Thank you so much for joining me today. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe for more UX related content like this. If you have any thoughts or questions about user experience, please drop them in the comments below. They really do help YouTube prioritize my videos. I hope to see you next time. My name is Ken, and you're watching Mastering UX.